What up, y'all? It's your man, Abuamerican. We are back for another episode of Blockchain Bros. We have a special guest. Mark, welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You guys know everybody else. So, yeah. So, we were going to talk about something that I have, obviously been in for a minute, was HNS. As you can see, Mark has on the HNS hoodie, which I've been envying since the first time I spoke to him. Where did you get that? Let me just ask you that. Where did you even get that?
Namebase, I think, has a shop open. I don't know if it's shop.namebase.io. I don't remember the exact URL, but like if you go to Namebase, they have a merch shop up there. It's one of their subdomains probably, but yeah, I can definitely share that out in a tweet afterward here.
Nice. Yeah, because I like that. So, yes. What, Mark? Introduce yourself. What do you do with HNS? What do you have to do with HNS? How do you work with that?
Yeah. So, I was before I discovered HNS, I was like into the domains, kind of watching crypto from the sidelines. When I saw that there was a combination of the two, I'm like, well, that's my sign. Time to get in. And so I have been just really trying to help educate people around Handshake, being mostly active on Twitter and Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces and things like that to help people understand, gift them their first names. So, if you're interested in Handshake after watching through this and listening to some of what we have to say, then feel free to DM me at namesake Mark on Twitter, and I'll gift your first name. And happy to answer any questions also. So yeah, I've been starting to create more content around that, and we'll be doing more long form posts in the future.
Nice. Now, one of the difficulties that I have when it comes down to Handshake is describing what it does and how it can help the average person. But let's just start with what does it do? Let's start with that, I guess.
Yeah, the most concise way I can think of to describe it is Handshake is doing for domain names what Bitcoin did for money, and that's kind of a literal literal thing, because Handshake is a fork of Bitcoin, which is itself a JavaScript implementation of Bitcoin. So pretty much the only difference is that instead of a C++ programming language, it's written in JavaScript. And instead of being solely focused on money, there were covenants that were added in for having on-chain domain name auctions. So instead of having a domain auction or buying the names through a company, which, when you rent a .com, for example, you're paying an annual fee for that. You're paying a private company that in turn pays a private company, right? So you are layers down the ownership stack and you're paying rent. Whereas with Handshake, you are the owner of the .com, so to speak. It's purely top-level domains on chain, and you are paying. You're not really paying anyone. You are burning a token on the protocol. So it basically in the same way that Bitcoin decentralized money, this is decentralizing namespace. And many in the community feel that really these are the two best use cases for a proof of work chain. We can't have a layer one proof of work for every single use case, right? It's just not sustainable, not feasible, not even really needed. But these two lend particularly well to be able to say, okay, verifiably, this is who owns what, when, and why.
Nice. So I can buy a top level domain. A top level domain would be we have .com. That's top level, right?
Yep, right at the dot.
I could say .Abuamerican. Mm-hmm. And with .Abuamerican, I can actually sell subdomains of .Abuamerican. So someone wants to be like Alex.Abuamerican. I don't know why he'd want to do that, but if he wanted to do it, he could do it. Am I understanding this right?
Yeah, no, and that's actually a great point, because why would Alex want to do that? Well, if you had a forum or community that you built around Abuamerican, you don't even ever necessarily have to sell access to that. You could have some premium names that you could sell to help support your channel and your group. But otherwise, you could just say, hey, subscribe. When you subscribe to my newsletter or channel or whatever else, we will automatically issue you your username .Abuamerican, and that will be your login. And so the only way to access that is to have this issued second level domain that acts as a decentralized ID. And so that is both simultaneously your username and password, kind of like logging in with Facebook or Google, same concept, just on chain.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Now, you can do that already at news.namebase.io. It's Name or News, and so like they built a proof of concept for this. There's also a GitHub where you can get the same capability. Audius has been doing something similar, which is Audius is like a decentralized Spotify on Ethereum, and so they've been issuing, like, anybody that has a username with them is issued a second level domain. So you could, like, Mark Cuban, for example, is mcuban.audius, and there's, like, if you type that in, it'll go to his profile.
Okay,
nice. I like that comment.
My wife is making jokes. She said, "Wife number one." American.
If I was not, I put a one in front. First wife. No,
yeah,
I'm
don't
not
give me any ideas there. Okay, so how would a person go about, like, purchasing a top level domain? If a person wanted a top level domain, how do they get one? Is this something that anybody can do, or do you have to be a specific person, an organization, whatever else?
No, I mean, anybody can do it. So before Handshake, again, I was a no-coiner. Like, I was watching from the sidelines. I thought, oh man, like, I was around like 2017, like, Bitcoin and Ethereum are spiking. Like, I missed the boat, and then I just kind of forgot about it for a while, and then I discovered this early 2020. And yeah, so you can trade Bitcoin on Namebase. Namebase is probably the easiest place to do it so far. I mean, there are non-custodial options like bobwallet.io. However, Namebase.io is like the GoDaddy meets Coinbase kind of thing. So, like, you can register names there, and they act as an exchange as well. So you can trade your Bitcoin or sign up. If you're in the States, you can also join the USD on-ramp program by Handshake, and then you can either bid in auctions on the site. So there are auctions happening 24/7. They're open for 5 days. You can and we can touch on a bit on how that works a bit later, but you can either win them at auction or you can buy them on the marketplace. And then there is, I believe, ACH support coming for that. So you could just, like, hook up your bank account to it and just buy one straight from that. And I think that's going to make things a lot easier, because right now it is like you do have to work with crypto to get a top level domain currently.
Okay.
This is a huge investment opportunity for people, because you could buy, for example, like you said, .Abuamerican, but you can also buy something that's very general. You could buy like .cars, and then anybody that would like to start a website about cars could go through you. So this can be like a huge, but my question is, can anybody shut you down? Being decentralized, right? It shouldn't be able. So this is like a huge, go ahead.
Yes and no. So, I mean, like, right now, is it technically possible that you could set up a fully decentralized presence with that? Yes, absolutely. Is the technical requirement to do that rather high right now? Yes. So, like, could somebody, like, kind of an average person spin up a fully immutable Reddit right now? Not yet, but that is the ultimate goal, is that, like, creating your own social, like, immutable social network that has the scalability of a full internet on a top level domain would be just as easy as setting up, like, a Wix website right now, right? That's the end vision.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this is being supported by other networks, like interoperability with other networks like Saya for storage, Akash Network for compute, Sentinel DVPN on Cosmos, which is a decentralized VPN service, is also integrating with Handshake and resolving through their nodes. So, I mean, like, there's a lot of development coming with that. Brave browser that already supports IPFS is working to integrate Handshake as well. So, like, yes, you can do that through Bob Wallet, have a non-custodial option and hook it up with these various decentralized storage and compute to have that kind of immutability. But right now it's more of, I think we're still kind of feeling out, people are building some, like, meme sites and small community sites just to kind of test out the waters. So yeah, still a very early phase and opportunity zone for the project.
Yeah, I see a decent future implementation of the Handshake and Namesake by reason. Well, a lot of, the internet is actually gearing towards an internet 3.0, like they say, towards a decentralized internet. So the kind of work you are performing and actually making, connecting domain names towards a decentralized blockchain or technology, I'm going to put it, will actually future-wise become a cornerstone of the internet. So you can see quite a lot of future potential in the topic itself. Naturally, I know there are a lot of people who will try to make some digital money from it by selling and buying domain names. However, yeah, I forgot actually my question, but from what I heard, it's very, very solid. So
I have a question from wife1.abuamerican. She says, how to implement the top level domain to a decentralized website. Is there a solution for that right now already?
Yeah, actually, Greg, the CEO of Akash Network, had put out a bounty for about $1,500 for somebody to find a way to use WordPress between Saya, which is decentralized storage, Handshake for the naming, and Akash for compute. And so there is a tutorial for doing that. I can also share that under a tweet of this after we're done for more resources there. You can Fleek HQ also integrated Handshake, so you can launch a static decentralized site that way. I believe it. There's also ways to hook it up with IPFS. Actually, if you go to namebase.io under use cases, they have a list of different things that you can do with that. I think there's also a showcase area at news.namebase.io that has a full showcase of different things that you can set up with that. But yeah, there's also ways that you could just, if you don't necessarily want to, do the full stack like that, you can just do kind of like a micro blog using Saya, and that would be equally as decentralized. So yeah, I think this is the beginning of being able to have a full freedom of speech online. Like this is really the first time that you can't be canceled by a platform. And there's going to be growing pains with that, both technologically and socially, philosophically within society. Like I don't think a lot of society or communities are really fully ready for that. But that's something that we need to grow into.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in a corner of Twitter that's quite. A lot of people I follow and that follow me get banned regularly, and so my corner of Twitter should definitely be interested in this, because a lot of guys are looking for ways to not get canceled. We had this thing where Trump actually got canceled, and then he ended up going to Parler. Everybody got doxxed at Parler, and so everybody's looking for something. And definitely HNS, I think, solves this issue. Which brings us to another topic that I just want to touch off on real quick and sort of get it out of the way. Everybody's always talking about and thinking about how to make money, as quickly as possible. People want to buy and hodl and, sell and flip and all this type of stuff. And someone actually said I have a men's community, and he said, I think Handshake's looking good. I think I'm going to buy and hodl some. Do you think it's a good idea for that? I mean, do you think that's a coin that's something, worthy of doing? I mean, not worthy, but I got into HNS through mining. And then I was using the HNS. I wasn't flipping it for Bitcoin because it's very easy to do through the site, and in hodling the Bitcoin, I was actually using it for decentralized names. I was buying the names, top level names. We still do this. And so for me, I believed in the project, and I was using the HNS that I was mining for the project. I actually mine Saya also now. So, because it's also profitable, and I also believe in the project. So would you think this is the type of coin that's good for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from an investment standpoint, I love Handshake. It's one of my heaviest bags. So, I mean, like, full disclosure, obviously I'm biased because I'm heavily invested in it. And for most people, just holding Handshake is going to be the safest option, right? Like, yes, you can buy names. Selling second level domains, like, it seems like the greatest thing ever. Like I own .gin, right? And .gin was one of the first names to be listed on legacy registrars through the registry program with Namebase. So I'm listed on 101 domain and Circa, gateway.io, and I can sell second level domains off of that. I did virtually no marketing for that, and it's a profitable asset. It's paid for itself twice over in Handshake. And some of the early purchases, because they were so early, and I priced it as one of the most expensive names at like $450 and retail. That's without email. And people were still buying that, and I did that to maintain the integrity of the space. Like I didn't want to land rush on it, right? So I was like actually actively trying not to make sales, but you need a great name like that, and that's hard to do right now. And really, like the most successful name right now was .c from Clay Collins at Nomics. Did a great job marketing. Spent a good bit on a great name up front. Did a great job marketing. Put resources into it. And so, like, if you're serious and you want to turn this into a full enterprise and you're going to put in the work for it, that's a great way to go. But you can't expect to just buy a name, post it, and expect to start printing Handshake, right? That's just not. It's not going to work that way, especially as more competition comes around the space. Similarly, buying and flipping names on the marketplace. A lot of people get 100x, 1000x. I've seen 100,000x is the highest, where somebody won it for free. It was, so you paid 0.09 transaction fee, right? Like a penny effectively, and then flipped it for like 9,000 HNS. So it's possible, but you really need to have your finger on the pulse of the market to know what to look for and what to list. So I think for the average person, just buying Handshake would probably be the best solution for that, and possibly buying some second level domains on the marketplace, which people are they're already kind of familiar with that. Like, whatever.com, one word is going to be a good investment. And that's I think part of the reason the .c's are doing so well is they see that as like the .com of Web3. And so they're getting the generic, one word terms for that. Now, why Handshake would be a good investment to me is an interesting topic, because the model of it is very elegant, in my opinion. So every time somebody wins an auction on chain, as I mentioned before, you're not paying Namebase. Namebase didn't create Handshake. They're just the first company to enthusiastically enter the space and put some serious resources to make it available for everybody. It's a great top of funnel, and you can always decentralize and decouple from that. So I view them as kind of a wellspring there of decentralization. But anyway, so when you win an auction there on chain, it's burned by the network. That Handshake will never be used again. It's gone. And you pay, like, if I bid 200 HNS and you bid 100, and those were the only bids in the auction, I would win because I paid I bid the most, but I would pay 100, the second highest bid. That's called a victory auction. So basically the winner always gets a discount, which is also fun. So the Handshake is burned there, but then you don't actually get that name. There's a reveal period, and between the auction being 5 days long and the reveal period being about 10 days long, more or less, that Handshake for your bid is locked up for about 2 weeks. So at any given time, X% of the supply is locked up in those auctions. And then let's say you win that auction. I'll use mine like .gen as an example. Now, when I make sales off of that, that's also paid, at least currently, in Handshake. So that drives demand. Every time I make a sale for that drives demand for Handshake. And then more people seeing the success of those names, of course, want to go out and get their own top level domain. And so they go into the auction and the cycle repeats. And so between that and there being a large amount that's being held, I think 46%, if I recall correctly, of the total supply, and I think it was closer to 70% of the initial supply was held for airdrops to incentivize developers and people that are already within the space, like the Alexa top 100,000 websites and all of the current top level domains all have varying amounts of Handshake reserved for them, and all of that's locked up. So a lot of that liquidity, until they claim it, is off the table, which makes it very illiquid, and demand is continuing to rise. Like if you look at stats.namebase.io, it's a great place where you can see the volume of daily bidding and the marketplace activity as well. And like that's just been skyrocketing over the last quarter or two. So I think that this month and next month, especially with some of the developments that I mentioned, like the ACH, the onboard fiat into the marketplace, some of the integration with Brave, and some of the more capabilities for selling second level domains, this is going to be retrospectively viewed as the beginning of the flywheel of these economics. And so I'm even though it's my heaviest bag, I'm still adding on, even though I'm like 5x up from my initial entry.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I've actually, I personally stopped spending. My wife is the only one doing the bidding now and whatnot, with the name. So I just stack now myself. We got a couple of questions here.
Congrats on the fairy emoji, by the way. I was surprised that that a single emoji was even going at market anymore, and that's pretty awesome. So cheers.
Yeah. The wife was like, freaking out because she kept on getting the gender logo, and she was like, "No, I don't want to." When I put in the code, I'm saying, "No, I'm just showing you this a female." She's like, "There are no male fairies." I'm like, "It doesn't matter. It's just showing you that." And so she's freaking out because she thought it was like, it was 2 instead of 1, but she got 1. So if you want dot fairy, the literal, fairy, the emoji fairy, hit her up. She can help you out.
Yeah, I think that's a 1 of 3. You got the first one, I think, out of the series, at least as it appears on the phone. But yeah, emojis are one of my favorite categories for names. It's also been the most lucrative for me. But it's really nuanced. It can be kind of complicated. And if you don't know like what you're doing or what you're looking into, I don't recommend doing that and like throwing any serious capital into that unless you really have a plan for it.
Yeah. Got a couple questions here. I think these are. Where is it? No, that one you answered. Sorry, guys. It's like here it is. Okay. So if I understand correctly, I can buy the .restaurant top level domain. You can't. I tried. It's gone already. And start renting that out to restaurants that want to use it for their website. Theoretically,
yes. The only thing that would be problematic with that right now is that it's not universally resolvable, right? So because this is a completely alternate namespace or root zone, like you can't just type that into Chrome and it works, or Firefox or whatever browser you use, right? We do have a Puma browser right now, which is a mobile-first browser that adopted Handshake. As I mentioned, Brave browser, which has millions of monthly active users, is looking to integrate soon. And I think as we get more apps and more communities that migrate to Handshake and start using it within those browsers, that will create more of an attention economy that'll attract larger browsers. But like ultimately, I don't think that we even really need to have, like, we don't need the to have that kind of integration. I think we can build enough of a side economy in the same way that like you don't go into your JP Morgan Chase or other banks right now and deposit or withdraw Bitcoin yet. But Bitcoin nonetheless is still $1 trillion asset and is wildly successful by all metrics. So I think in a similar way, Handshake doesn't need the approval of the incumbent system that it's disintermediating. But it would be, I think, a really great marketing way to market for restaurants that are in that niche, right? Like one of the first merchants ever to accept Bitcoin was a German pub that accepted it for for buying drinks there. And so I think something similar could happen with that. And similarly, companies can market directly to the crypto community by using the emails. Hmail is actually a native Handshake email client that can be used with Thunderbird open source. And so like imagine being able to market directly to the crypto community on their own platforms. And I think that would be one of the ways that we get larger merchants into the space initially.
Yeah, and that was actually a question that was asked: how if I want to use the name for an email service? I guess she means the Abuamerican, I suppose.
I think that's hmail.app. Let me check that here if I recall correctly. Yep, hmail.app, and then you can also you use your own email client. My understanding is Thunderbird has been the option of choice, although that again is going to continue evolving, and I feel that that will become as simple as setting up like a Gmail account.
Okay, hmail.app. Look at that. I wrote that down there. This is an odd question. I guess we'll take it and knock these questions out real quick. Can a decentralized cloud storage service be set up on the network? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's I mean, like you could do that with Handshake, Saya, and Akash for sure. So it'd be akash.network. Saya, actually, I don't know their URL. I think they recently changed names, so I don't know what their URL is off the top of my head, unfortunately, but very easy to find. And yeah, and then using Handshake as the DNS. But yeah, that's absolutely feasible. And you could probably white label it and make a good bit on it also.
Oh, wow. Okay, nice. White label it. Okay.
Yeah, like I was talking with the community, like the hmail.app is completely community driven. So like that was not, Namebase has added some features like D-links, like setting up a decentralized link tree with Handshake names and Saya. But
we
a
do.
lot of the developments have been completely community driven and organically driven. So like we have HNS Fund, which you can find on Twitter. I believe they're hnsfund.com. There's the Handshake Institute and DWeb Foundation that are all community-founded organizations that are funding and supporting community development. And some people are just doing it in their free time proactively, and that's how hmail.app got started. I was talking with them about setting up, eventually having a white label solution for that. So like if I have a name, and it would, the use case would lend particularly well for, vanity email addresses, basically. Then you could white label that, and it would still be like, even putting in a profit margin, it would still be cheaper than using Gmail. Like
wow.
That's one of the, I think the really exciting things of with Web3 is that as it matures, it becomes the pragmatic and fiscally conservative option. And I think that that incentive alignment, it just being the fiscally conservative thing to do, is when we win. Like Bitcoin is getting, added to balance sheets of Time Magazine and Tesla and other organizations because it is objectively the superior store of value for them to put their treasury in, right? Mm-hmm. And so in a similar way, eventually, instead of using AWS, like Parler was using, they'll use, Akash or something else. And then, the economics, the same thing for domains. Like, yeah, you might pay $50,000 for a top level domain through a Handshake for a really good one, but that's still $135,000 less than the application fee through Icon, and you only have to pay it once, as opposed to having an ongoing $35,000 annual fee. So, like the economics just work.
That just makes sense. Yeah, dude. Wow. Okay. So we covered, I think, like the basics. Let's get into now. I'm just gonna have to throw the term out there, and you're gonna have to just help me out, man. Tokens, tokenization, all this type of stuff. How does this fit in? Because we were talking, dude, you blew my mind to the point where it's like I got everything and retained nothing. I just remembered it was an amazing conversation. So can we get into that a little bit?
For like as it relates to like NFTs, like all of the hype
kind of NFTs and whatnot, and how this all interconnects with HNS and all of this.
Yeah, so I think there are some really interesting use cases for artists that are using or getting into the NFT space right now. So for example, like storage, the storage of the media has been a big concern lately. Like if you tokenize a tweet and somebody deletes the tweet, they can theoretically like rug pull that, right? Like the media ceases to exist. And so you need permanent media, like something like Arweave, with like single payment, indefinite storage, hooked up to a Handshake name. So like imagine if you had like Abuamerican and you decided that you wanted to, like you made it, mining's doing great, you want to become an artist, right? And so you start issuing pieces. You could title the piece whatever, and then put that as a URL left of your name. So it would be like, painting.abuamerican, something like that, right? And then have a piece there. And then you could, something I see happening in the future is that you would be able to gift that second level domain as an NFT itself that contains the media permanently stored on something like Arweave or Saya. And so that, like, not only do you have the permanent storage for the media itself, but you also have this proof of work authentication that it came from that artist because of the URL that you used to access it. So like using Beeple, like that was a like if you had whatever number piece or name of piece .beeple, and then you could have an NFT of that. And so like you perhaps there would be some like credit of the owner at the bottom of that, right? Or some transaction history that would show. So if anybody's free to visit this through their Web3 browser, they would be able to verify that.
Yeah, if I get it correctly, you can actually tokenize the contract, I'm going to call it, into an NFT file, put it up for sale, and let others get involved with it.
Yeah, you could absolutely do that. Yeah, so you could sell some of the media or NFTs as a domain primarily. So like it would be domain first, and then the media would be essentially the web page on it. And similarly, there are some there's some NFTs that are like built into the protocol. So like if we think about kind of the hierarchy of authority for NFTs, I think a lot of skeptics of NFTs are like, you're buying a JPEG for $1 million. Like, what are you doing? You're an idiot, right? Like I can just copy and paste this. And so the value proposition for that is, who issued that? Like who is granting that meaning? It's all context, right? It's context of who am I buying this from and why? So you have, hey kitty, you have so like at kind of the bottom level, you have the artist level, right? So like Abuamerican can mint an NFT, and then depending on your social capital, depending on your network, you could charge X amount for that. So like we've seen, doodles from famous people going for more than most people make in a year. Whereas really talented artists that are relatively, obscure and unknown have this piece that they poured their life into, and it's going for like $1,000 or something, right? So that there's there what?
You said that that some people say that you could really literally copy this JPEG and be done with it. That's in a way, it's like if I would take a Picasso painting and I would print it. I mean, yeah, I still have it, but I don't have the original.
You have the likeness, but not the authenticity of the ownership, the context of ownership of the original piece. Exactly. And so, so when you talk about that kind of authentication, like using the fine art as an example, if you buy it from a gallery, that gallery is authenticating, right? That's part of their service. Is part of the reason that you're paying the price that you are for it, is they're authenticating, like, yes, this is an actual Basquiat or something, right? And so at the bottom level, you have the artist, right? And then we saw the next level up, which was like Top Shots. So now you have the NBA authenticating. And so they're saying, like, here's our intellectual property of this moment in time with this particular player, and you can own a video of them dunking, right? And so it is the NBA's authority that was imbuing value to that. And so that was part of the reason that the valuation of those went up. And then the next level beyond that is generative art. So you have a smart contract, like with CryptoPunks or Mooncats, where it's a smart contract. So it's now disintermediating any human involvement, and those are even more valuable. And what I see on Handshake is a protocol level of authentication, which in the case of like emojis, you don't have to worry about any of the, like, where the media is stored for an emoji, because what you actually own is the private keys to the puny code that tells your browser or device what to render. And so insofar as you can own any kind of open property, or like, commons property that like you can't copyright an emoji, but you can own the puny code on chain, which is about the maximum level of ownership that you could possibly hope for with anything digital. And again, in this case, instead of having an artist or an organization or a smart contract that is the one granting authority, it's the whole protocol and the device itself. So that, like, owning that fairy emoji in Abuamerican's case is owning that particular emoji that lives on billions of devices, and being the only person that has the keys for that. And I think that is a really interesting value proposition that hasn't been fully understood or appreciated, even with people that are in the community.
Yeah, you raised a very solid and valid point there. To get off a little bit on NFTs, that's currently one of the biggest problems that also Alex mentioned. It is the practical ERL ownership of it, because indeed currently the biggest problem with NFTs has to do with real ownership. I can say, look, I bought the Mona Lisa here, introducing it towards the special marketplace. I forgot the name about it, and say, okay, this is the Mona Lisa, now entirely digitized. However, I know there's one in the Louvre museum, etc., etc. So there's no real ownership. Now, what I can tell with Handshake, the domain names, like you said. It's going to be about interlinking a variety of networks, so between blockchains. My apologies. On one side, the NFTs where you digitize the ownership and the immediate links towards the Handshake network with private keys on one hand, and well, the designatory and the attached websites on the other side. So there's going to be a use of a smart contract, if I am putting it right here, to validate on one side the practical ownership, and on the other hand, the transference of the ownership as verified by the Handshake decentralized network. Am I correct? Okay.
Yeah, that sounds right. And I think that we'll also see some use cases where we'll have more like a multi-sig sort of thing happening also. So like when you're transferring that, I think that it'll be that'll be important to have, because like in the event that your device is compromised, you don't want somebody to be able to just like go ahead and take the name and now they can claim ownership of that. Like if we're tokenizing cars or houses or something like that, you wouldn't want the ownership of that to be the end all be all, because then somebody could just hack your device, take your NFT of ownership of that, and then all of a sudden they can kick you out, right? They can evict you. That's nonsense. So I think that having a multi-sig with that as well, to ensure that the context of the transference is legitimate, will also be a use case that we'll see moving forward.
Well, maybe we can drag this question into that, since you just covered security. How resistant are the domains to hacks and attacks? Has that been addressed?
It would depend on how you're holding the keys. Like if you're in a non-custodial wallet like bobwallet.io, and you are practicing good operational security, virtually impossible. Right. It would be like that's like saying like how censorship resistant or like how secure is Bitcoin. It's literally the same thing.
Same thing.
Right. So you would need to like Sybil the entire Handshake network, which I don't know what the hash rate is sitting at right now, but I would venture to guess that it would be exceptionally difficult. Right. I'm
pushing out nearly 2 terahashes here alone in my house. I'm about to go up to like 5. You'd be hard pressed to break that.
Right, exactly. So, again, they're incredibly secure, which is why, there's a lot of namespaces popping up. Like there's Polka domains that are on a .pd for the Polkadot chain. Thorchain is coming out with Thor name service, I think mostly for wallet, wallet integration. Tezos just announced a namespace. I haven't even started looking into what that even is. But there's a lot of namespaces in it, and I think that when there are multiple namespaces, differentiation is where the value is built. So it's going to be, I don't think it's necessarily zero sum. I think it's plus sum, and it's very application specific. And in the case of Handshake, Handshake is unique because any and all namespaces that have ever and will ever exist will collide with Handshake, just because of the pure scope of and scale of the naming, right? It's all top level domains, whereas virtually all others are focusing only on second level domains, or in the case of Butterfly Protocol, like community owned top level domains. And so it's also the only one currently that is proof of work, right? It's the only one that has multilingual support. And so when you take multilingual support, proof of work, and the fully decentralized nature of it, I think that it has the best shot of being the root zone for the world and for all of crypto because of that. Because it really, I think, gives an incredible advantage to developing communities and developing nations to be able to effectively communicate with one another without fearing any sort of censorship or confiscation from their governments.
Wow, nice.
I think another issue that the common guy would like to know about, that we talked about before we got live, is SSL certificates. You want to put a website out there, you want the people to generally think it's secure, and it's okay to put their credit card or whatever it might be in there.
Yeah, that's a really great point and question, and something that I was really concerned with when I first that, and the resolving on Chrome, right? I think to anybody getting into getting into Handshake, they're like, okay, great. When can I have the SSL, the padlock on the left, and when can we resolve on any browser ever? And I think that over the course of the last year that I've been in Handshake, I've kind of had a paradigm shift with that, where I've come to realize that those things aren't wholly necessary. That's still very much Web 2 and like fiat thinking, like to use the credit card. You're thinking in terms of USD, you're thinking in terms of government control, you're thinking in terms of the incumbent system. Whereas what this is, the security model for this would be running like a light node or a full node within an app that is interacting directly with the chain, right? So again, the network, the full power of the network is the security, and you're not going to have better security than that. Like the SSL and padlock, the padlock basically is currently dependent on certificate authorities, and you don't have to do much Googling to find instances where certificate authorities dropped the ball, and there was massive implications of security as a result. So I think that shifting our mindset collectively from that kind of system to saying like, okay, I want to know what browsers are allowing me to run a light node or full node like Handshake does, right? And authenticate the site that way, log in that way, and then use crypto native payments, right? So like more wallet integrations, more being able to transact with USDC if you must, or any other crypto natively. That to me is the end goal.
Yeah. So basically, it boils down to, whereas with Web 2.0, you buy to own a domain, whereas with Web 3.0, especially with Handshake, you run a full node, you support the network in order to own the domain.
Yeah, that would be probably well. And on Web 2, I mean, you really don't own the domain. Like you're paying to rent the name, and you are existing there at the pleasure of those that own the platform. Whereas in a Handshake, you fully own it by owning the private keys, and you own the infrastructure. Like you are the platform owner.
I got a question here I can actually answer. How does one mine HNS? It is mined via ASIC miners, application-specific integrated chips or circuits. Only 2 companies make Handshake miners, as far as I know. And GPU mining is no longer viable. If you did it, you'd be mining at a loss. Basically, you're just securing the network, but you're paying actually at this point out of power to try and secure the network. It'd be considered too weak. Do you mind jumping around topics here? So I have questions, but it's kind of like off of our chain of conversation.
Sure. I'm super open. Go for it.
Cool. So I'm not sure I understand this. Different with ETH names versus what's the difference with ETH names versus Handshake names? I heard ETH names are centralized. Am I correct? Does that make sense? I understand the question.
That's a super subjective question. Depends on who you ask. Currently, I believe the current state is that there are 4 of 7 multi-sig. However, I've been corrected in that that can be burned basically or locked. Actually, Handshake has forked ENS with badass.domain. So if you go to badass.domains, you can register your .badass, like Abuamerican.badass, which I hope somebody doesn't register that while we're on live here. But
my trolls, they hate me. They might just do it.
Right. So you can connect your MetaMask to that. And .badass is ultimately rooted in Handshake and was forked with forked of ENS, and so you can basically use that in the exact same way. So we would like to integrate with them. I think we're philosophically different at this point, being that they are currently working on integrating ICANN. So like they have like .xyz and are using other extensions. I think they have a few other extensions that they're working with, and ultimately want to like upgrade the current system with Ethereum capability. And then expand on the namespace from there. Whereas Handshake is just rapidly expand. Actually, we just hit the 1 million mark for top level domains. There are now 1 million top level domains in Handshake. And so like we're kind of front running any other issuance that ICANN or others could do. And it's been expressed that they're just incompatible in that way philosophically anyway. But in terms of the actual difference, Handshake is proof of work, app specific for DNS. and focuses on issuing top level domains, whereas ENS is currently a smart contract on a general chain Ethereum, and is focused on second level domains. That's probably the most high level differentiator. And then, of course, you can look into more of the technical details and differences. Actually, I think there was an article that was recently put out. I'll find that. I need to make a list of what I'm the other resources that I'm sharing here at the end of that. But yeah, there are some good resources for that if you want to dive in deeper.
Okay. Which brings me to another thing. We're talking about at one point we spoke about like interconnectivity between the Ethereum chain and HNS. There's some sort of interconnectivity like exists. Can you touch on that real quick?
Yeah, I mean the best kind of MVP, minimally viable product or proof of concept for that is badass.domains. So that is the de facto interconnection right now. I do see that being developed further and becoming easier to do. So people, like, I imagine people being able to stake their name to a chain, like burn the keys, because once, like, let's say if I didn't have it in the current registry program, if I put like .gen or another name on Ethereum, you would want to burn the keys for that, because if a bunch of people register second level domains of that, and then all of a sudden I revoke the ownership of the top level domain, that's rug pulling them, right? It would disrupt the whole namespace, and it's just not good for anybody. So to give them security, you would want to burn the name there, or burn the keys rather, to move the name, so that people can trust that when they get a second level domain there, that they are going to be able to own and keep that. And then what I see happening, and I don't know if there's anything in the works for this formally, but what I see happening is then there being like an NFT or smart contract that grants the rights to revenue for that, like for that top level domain. And so if you wanted to sell that name, in a matter of speaking, you would actually be transferring the NFT or contract for the revenue share for it. And so I think that has a lot of interesting use cases, especially when you can fractionalize that revenue stream. And so now all of a sudden, like you can have a fully autonomous company or organization that is selling shares effectively of the revenue stream of that name. Or if you wanted to, issue second level domains and have, let's say, 20% go to your favorite charity, that 20% could be locked going into a vault for that charity, or go into a fund that yield farms it to fund that cause in perpetuity. And then when you want to sell that name, otherwise you're actually selling 80% of the revenue stream to that, because the 20% has been locked in. That's kind of going into the weeds a bit, but I think that as we become more interoperable with that, and there's some other, I don't know how public there are, but there are some other networks that we're looking to and protocols to integrate with, that I think will speed that kind of utility up way more than even perhaps I anticipate. Like, a lot of what we talked about, I see coming to fruition, at least in minimally viable products, by like end of year.
Oh wow, that soon?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of talk about like decentralized social media proof of concepts. Like we already have is it nmd.co, Nomad, or maybe it's nomad.co, but Nomad is a social network that's built on Handshake, or built around Handshake. So, and that was completely independent of Namebase. That was community driven. So I think with the caliber of people that are working in the project, especially behind the scenes, yes, I think that we're going to have a fully decentralized Reddit, YouTube, and have fractionalized ownership of assets and some really powerful registries and registrars a lot sooner than I think a lot of people realize.
Wow, so everything's kind of like wide open right now. So theoretically speaking, one of us here on the panel could be the next Handshake YouTube owner.
I mean, yeah, and I think the cool thing with that too is that I think we'll see less of the kind of like mega platforms. I'm sure that some will exist just due to network effects, and especially if somebody's able to well fund it and really really implement it effectively. But I'm more interested in seeing micro communities around that. Like, imagine having either a city or even a village that has the top level domain and issues second level domains to all of their their residents, and them being able to have their own networks like that, and like basically have their own localized version of a YouTube or Reddit, or their own localized email provider, things like that. It's basically a more federated kind of ecosystem, and I think that there's a lot of possibility for that. We haven't really seen that happen yet, but again, especially for developing communities, and the fact that this is the only multilingual chain that's supporting this kind of thing, especially with the degree of security that it provides with proof of work, it really gives the opportunity for developing communities to leapfrog all of the BS that we've gone through in the westernized world. Just skip that whole walled garden mess and go straight to Web3, and that's really powerful.
Wow.
So, if I understand correctly, institutions of higher education like universities haven't jumped on it. So, like, for example, one of the universities I went to was VUB, Vrije Universiteit Brussels, for example, because I know there's a lot of PhD students. Well, there is an integrated system for master students where they can build their own website ending with .ac.vub.be. So would be awesome if they would implement it with, well, the namesake domains, primary VUB, secondary, PhD, professional website with their master thesis, etc. So something like that should occur.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think that with some of the decentralized ID solutions that are coming out too, it'll be really interesting to like if they were to build a site as a second level domain. Like, let's say the university gets their top level domain, students are freely available to create a second level domain with their namesake or any their handle within the school system, whatever the case might be. And they can post their thesis, post the anything else about their experience there, but then also have these decentralized IDs that are signed by either faculty or the university itself, that are certifying like, yes, this certificate is valid, this degree is valid, and then also having the implicit confirmation or authority from the second level domain itself. Just the fact that you are able to build on that proves that you were an enrolled student. So yeah, I think that there's also a lot of possibility there for being able to authenticate and validate that this information is real, especially with how much duplication and kind of fake news that's going around the world right now. That's a really valuable use case.
This is really like pretty interesting. I mean, just it kind of hit me just now, it just dawned on me. And I mean, you talked about this way back with like, logins, but I don't know why it just hit me in this part what you guys were talking about. It's like in my men's community, if I wanted to run like basically like logins, I could have like Alex.Abuamerican, and that could be his login, and like nobody else could get in there. That's dude, it's like all of it's taking, sorry guys, I'm old. I'm just hold on.
It's like it's a lot. Like I said, with the browser thing, like the SSL security and getting the big browsers of the world on board, that would be great. Don't get me wrong, we're not saying that like, no, we're not doing that. It would be great, but it's not needed. And I think that shift to fully internalize and fully visualize the future moving to don't trust, verify, right? Like operating fully on nodes, operating on decentralized IDs that are able to verify information, create networks of trust between people based on the transactions between them. Of like, yes, I saw you do this, or like authenticating that way that yes, you did this thing, you completed this program, you are part of this community, and being able to verify that beyond a shadow of a doubt, transparently and trustlessly, is a lot to take in, especially for someone that's not, hasn't been embedded in the crypto community. And again, being that I literally bought, my first Satoshis last February, I've been playing a lot of catch up, right? So getting into crypto and COVID happening are inextricably intertwined for me. Like, they are one and the same. And so the only thing that I've been able to do is just go all the way down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, you went pretty deep, dude.
Let's just say, currently too many COVID and cryptocurrency are intertwined.
Yeah.
If I can give you an additional hint, the market is looking quite good to buy in.
Yes, it is. There, another kind of another use case we haven't really touched on yet is I think that Handshake, Saya, Akash, and other such chains and protocols will be the fundamental infrastructure for crypto moving forward, right? Because if you have a truly dangerous or disruptive, I should say, better than dangerous, but a truly disruptive DAO or DEX, like decentralized exchange or decentralized autonomous organization, like it's still currently censorable. That's why Satoshi and envisioned BitDNS worked on Namecoin, and Handshake directly benefited from the lessons learned with Namecoin, right? So this was a learned attempt. And this is, I know, in terms of decentralized naming or in creating a more secure namespace for that, this is probably like the sixth attempt or more throughout history. Like even before crypto, there was a lot of alt root zone attempts. And so I think that this is the best one that we've seen so far. And I think it speaks volumes that Satoshi envisioned BitDNS and saw that DNS is the a critical attack vector, right? Like for all of crypto, if you don't control your internet, then all of that, I mean, it becomes much more difficult to scale it to the international vision that many of us have. And I think that the Web3 movement is and DWeb movement is really the key to unlocking that and being able to have the Bitcoin standard internationally.
Yes, sorry. I don't know. I was just about to type Google is your friend for this one. Do you mind explaining what DAO is? I'm kind of lost.
And that is kind of a loaded word. So we'll break it down. It's an acronym for decentralized autonomous organization. Instead of decentralized is kind of a buzzword and also can be kind of triggering for people that argue semantics. Think of it as a distributed autonomous organization. And so if you think of like, what's the opposite of that? It's a centralized organization, kind of like a business now, top-down hierarchy. You meet in one physical location. And everybody's on the same payroll, that kind of thing. So what a DAO is having an international team, right? Kind of like the panel that we have here, right? So we have people that are distributed around the world that are united around a particular cause, and they are organizing around incentives and create incentives for people to carry out specific tasks and very clearly define the scope of work that needs to be done, and are able to delegate that work, incentivize it, reward it, and where need be, either punish or correct unsavory behavior in a way that does not rely on a single figurehead. And so this kind of distributed group of people are able to organize using new technologies to create an organization that is very difficult to try to censor in any way or to stop. So yeah, it's basically a company, a loose company at scale, is a succinct way to put it.
Yeah, if I may, to illustrate it even better, non-DAO, so non-decentralized autonomous organization, for example, is Google. By reason, they are corporate. They have decent structure with CEO and a variety of members. DAO, well, I'm going to say theoretically, most cryptocurrency projects, by reason the developers are worldwide and only work on one project. To be more precise, mostly, all decentralized exchanges are in reality DAO. They are an organization with worldwide developers everywhere. That's a DAO.
Okay. I have a question real quick. I can answer again since I think I'm the only minor on the panel. It says, which HNS miner do you guys recommend? Has anyone tried the Apollo iPollo G1? As far as I know, the iPollo G1 does not mine HNS. There is the number one producer of HNS miners is Gold Shell. They have several different models.
Goldshell.com.
Yeah, goldshell.com. Don't get scammed. There are some fakes. The goldshellminers.com is a fake site. If you go there and spend money, you'll get scammed. Goldshell.com. They are the number one producer of gold of HNS miners. The second company that I know of is Hummer, and their miners are making a loss right now. You will lose roughly $6 a day mining with those miners. So stick to HNS. They're the only ones that I know of that currently produce like up-to-date miners that, for HNS, and Siacoin also. Like mine, it's a dual miner. I can switch between the two algorithms on one miner. Mr. M asked that question on another show. We're sticking that to HNS only, please. Yeah. Okay. We are up on an hour. We usually only go for an hour. You want to go a little bit more, or I'm just like, do you think we missed something, Mark?
I don't know. We covered a lot. We went over like generally what it is, the tokenomics, how people can get involved, custodial, non-custodial, the future of what that might look like, some of the potential use cases. Some words of caution on in investing and like how I would go about it if I was new, which also I wrote an article that went into some of that at morganlinton.com. You'll see an intro article there. I'll be posting more content there as well, and on my own site. Although I think that needs to be updated. I've been so focused on social and like social outreach that like I've kind of let my site go a bit. So definitely going to need to get back on that and share this video and others. That I've done a few podcasts since I've updated that site also. So definitely need to update that. But I don't know. Does anyone in the audience have any other questions or any any?
I'm all about the money, so I'd like to know more about you flipping and making all that money. I want to know more about that, and I'm sure there's somebody here that likes to talk about money in the chat.
I'm in it. Me and the wife are in it, so Alex, me and my wife been in it.
Everyone likes money, but yeah, I'm more of a technical guy.
So and that to be completely clear, I do not have any sort of like consistent revenue stream with that. I feel like most of it has been mostly dumb luck, honestly, and the fact of having like a bit of a decent perspective and getting in early, which it is still extremely early, and I'm still finding a lot of opportunity. Personally, I think anything around fun identities, right? So thinking of them in terms of usernames, thinking of them in terms of vanity emails or wallet addresses, and some of like what would be kind of a flex to have as a Reddit handle, that kind of thing. Especially if you can describe a particular or describe or signal involvement within a particular lifestyle, movement, idea in emoji form or even with Unicode. I think that that's a really interesting use case. Like you can have you can incorporate the Bitcoin symbol into names. So like if Abuamerican used the Bitcoin symbol instead of bees, that's probably available on Handshake right now, right? And so you could register something like that. We are, as a community, encouraging people not to squat on personal names like that. Actually, we have a Zoom call happening this coming Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, be 7 p.m. Chicago time. This coming Thursday on like code of conduct around that, like profiting on generics and staying away from specifics, trademarks, etc. Because while it's possible, it's obviously not helping us at all. But yeah, in terms of like what you could do to make money with that's part of what I'm looking at. Like you can, I don't know if you've seen Chain Faces is an NFT project on Ethereum where they took like some of the old school kind of smileys, like but pre emoji, right? Like the smileys and different expressions that you could create with Unicode, and they were creating NFTs out of those. And while many of those are not replicable on Handshake, just due to the characters that are used, a lot of them are. And so like you can create a lot of Unicode faces with that, which that's wide open. That's a completely untapped space right now. I don't even think we've hit absolute scarcity for single characters yet. Like if you go into a Unicode library, there's still probably single characters available with different, like a lot of the Egyptian hieroglyphics, things like that, which I think could be fun long term. I've sold a couple of those. Emojis seem to be the biggest ones, though, especially with Yats. I don't know if you've seen or have heard of those, but that's a project that's, while currently completely like pre-mined and centralized, they're wanting to move to Tari, a Monero sidechain, and use emojis as like universal IDs and wallet addresses. So I think that's really been a boon to the awareness around that, and it has definitely caused an increase in bidding activity for emojis and Handshake. Because their auction, like some of those emojis went for 2 emoji combos, went for combos of 2 emojis went for no less than $30,000, and a single emoji sold for $400,000 US.
Wow.
So like there's a market for decentralized IDs and wallet addresses as emoji. And so like if you, some of my biggest sales have been emojis, both like single, double, triple, especially if you can create fun combinations, of like different terms. I think it's not currently available, but like a good one is somebody had like the taco emoji and bell emoji, like Taco Bell, which is a like next. All right, you guys had. All right, I was gonna say like I don't know like if anybody outside of the States is familiar. Like I don't know how wide there, but like yeah. So like they brand stuff like that, or but yeah, some of those have gone for quite a lot. The single emojis are selling for tens of thousands of HNS. They're some of the top selling ones. So like looking in that space, flipping those names, I think has been the most profitable for me personally, other than selling second level domains of .gin. If you are able to somebody just launched .dgen and .sats on gateway.io, and I think those are some great ones too, because you could have like alex.dgen if you're into like DeFi and Ethereum, or .sats if you are into to Bitcoin. But those are currently like custodial names on the legacy system. So I think that we'll see a lot more names come out, like when we have a more fully decentralized registrar where you can own your set, like kind of like the badass.domains concept, where you can own those as second level domains. There'll be a lot more of a market at that point in time, kind of like we see with OpenSea. So that's a really long-winded answer, but like that's kind of the general perspective. I don't think that we've hit a point where people have, like, other than mining, really have very consistent like sales of those, unless you're doing a lot of marketing around them, right? Again, like putting in the work, getting a lot of marketing, and like really trying to own a niche inside and out. But yeah, I based on what I've seen personally, the offers that I see coming in that I've both accepted and declined, and what I'm seeing in the marketplace and on the stats page at Namebase, emojis definitely seem to be the growth category right now. And again, I think as we hit absolute scarcity for 1 to 3 characters, some of those are gonna be really valuable, especially in the long term. Some of the Unicode faces, I think, are gonna be like the Handshake equivalent of CryptoPunks.
I'm always saying we got .even. So I think .even was one of the last of the 3 character top level domains to go. She got like one of the last of them. There's no longer 3 character top level domains, so you can't get and or car or cat.
And letters.
They're all gone.
Not even bro.
Like there's no 3-letter combos.
Yeah, 3-letter combos, they're gone.
Right. There are still 3 character combos, because you can have a
3-letter, yeah.
You can have a 3. That's what I'm saying. Like you can have a 3 character emoji, and some of those are still going. And I see some pretty brilliant yats that come up, and honestly, like I'm picking them up for like $1, right? And then getting offers for 10, 100x that. So there's that's definitely a market.
Indeed. Wow. Yeah, we've been going into that, and we've been it's like you said, it's not an easy market, but it is definitely a profitable one. I think our biggest problem is and you touched off on this, the guy with was it .c he did a really good marketing campaign and whatnot, you know, and I think that's very important, is that your marketing, it's like anything else with sales, you know, your marketing also has to be on point, but the potential is great, especially when people start to understand, you know, its usage and how it works, and, you know, the benefits of having, you know, these, the HNS domains. There's something I wanted to ask, and man, now it slipped my mind entirely. Oh, I just recently saw one of the biggest sales on Handshake was .p apparently. What was it? 260 something thousand?
Yeah, actually, no, that's a great, that is the thing that we missed. Good catch. Yeah, so Namecheap, which is a registrar, large legacy domain registrar, claimed their top level domain. So again, the top 100,000 websites as ranked by Alexa were reserved, along with a quantity of HNS to incentivize them to adopt, and also to prevent mass chaos. Like you don't want somebody registering .com that would just create chaos, right? So all of the existing top level domains, all in the top 100,000 websites were blocked off. Namecheap claimed theirs, along with over 2 million HNS, which was over like $1.8 million at the time. I think it's still over $1 million at this point. And they kept all of it. Not only did they keep the whole thing instead of cashing out, but they used their own Bitcoin to buy more Handshake, and then proceeded to buy, or to make the top sale that we've had so far, which was for a single letter .p for 375,000 HNS, which is still like I don't know, $200,000 somewhere in that ballpark, which is significant because that's more than the application fee for ICANN to register to get your own top level domain in the legacy system. So not only so they're paying more than the application fee to go through ICANN, partially because they get it instantly, as opposed to waiting for years and going through a long legal process with the current system. They had a free $1 million plus to use to do that, and they didn't. They bought more to get it, which I think is a significantly bullish signal, because the path of least resistance, if you didn't believe in it, is to just dump it. It's a free $1 million, and they could have cashed out straight into Bitcoin. Like they didn't even have to pass through fiat. So that implicitly says, or if not explicitly says to the market, that they believe that their domain .p will outperform both Handshake and Bitcoin, as whatever, you know, in terms of whatever the $300 or $200,000 is right now. So rather than keeping $200,000 in Handshake or Bitcoin, they believe that domain will outpace both of those based on their development. And I think that is a huge signal to the market, especially coming from a legacy domain registrar that has been innovating in the space for years.
That is a massive signal,
right? And there's still other, ICANN itself has something like 20 million Handshake. Like they could have tens of millions of dollars for cashing in right now, but I think that they won't. I don't know if they'll ever do that, because claiming is implicitly acknowledging and validating the market, right? The protocol. And so I think it'll be super interesting to see like how far they can push that price point. Like, HNS hits $1, they have $20 million sitting out there. Or if it hits $10, they have $200 million that they can claim. At what point does it become does that threshold break, right?
Yeah. I'd like to see a $10 handshake. I have so much.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing. With 60 or 40 was it 47% of the total supply that was originally earmarked for airdrops to developers, with their that you'd have to provide your PGP key from GitHub, assuming that you had 15 or more followers in February of 2019. February 4th, I think, was the snapshot. So we're really trying to incentivize, developers that had a following, like instead of just anyone with a GitHub account. A lot of those, people rotate their keys, right? It's good operational security. You rotate your keys. And so a lot of that may go unclaimed. And so the total supply, while the total supply of Handshake was 2 billion, we've already burned about 1% of the supply in the first year from auctions. And that's an ongoing, right now, how much ever Handshake has been burned since we've been talking. on top of the fact that a lot of that, even if they wanted to claim, some of those keys may have been rotated and they literally can't claim it. And so that I think the deflation could be somewhere closer to like 1 billion total Handshake at this point, which would put the supply on par with something like Uniswap or Chainlink. And so if that's any indication of the same level of significance and, underlying infrastructure to the market, if Handshake has similar adoption, I think we could go a lot higher than 10.
Wow. Yeah, after our first conversation, I stopped because I would buy top level domains and then I would also trade some in, because Handshake makes it very easy. Namebase makes it very easy to just flip your Handshake into Bitcoin. You can literally just boom, flip it right into BTC. And then, so they made it really easy. So I used to flip, it was like, it wasn't free BTC, but you get the idea, it was my power cost. And that would cost me to get the BTC. And after we talked, I was like, no more. That's it. I'm keeping this stuff. And I ordered another miner.
Yeah, that's been I had somebody else mention that, like, man, I was mining Saya, but like after talking to you, like I'm switching all my HS5s over to Handshake. Like, I'm like, don't get me wrong, we love Saya also, but yeah, I think just from the economic standpoint of like the burn, the supply, and the constant demand, and like there will always be a utility for Handshake because you need it to update your DNS records. You need it to interact on chain. You need it to buy names on chain, and so like things like ShakeDex, which is a community driven decentralized exchange for names and marketplace for names on chain in a trustless way. That's going to also run on Handshake. The email client runs on Handshake. Like more and more use cases for the token itself are becoming available at the same time that people are like, yeah, I'm not selling anymore. I'm still bidding. Like I said, I still open a few auctions a day. So I mean, I'm good on names, but I'm also starting to cut some of my what I perceive to be lesser names loose for lower multiples, just so that I can get, now that I have great exposure to names, I want better exposure to Handshake.
Handshake, yeah. And Handshake's on sale right now, guys, because the market's in a dip.
It's
on sale right now, so
it is, and I am an absolute crap trader. Like with all of the things that are happening now, like when it was at 80 cents and like I knew the registry was opening up, like, man, we are heading like straight into a liquidity crunch at the same time that we hit like, massive demand. And yeah, so like I bought more in after I hadn't for a while in like the 80s. Now now it's on sale in the 50s. I'm like 60s. It's not the end of the world. Like what was the saying? Like, if somebody offers you a seat on a rocket ship, don't be too concerned about what seat you get. Just get on. That's kind of why I'm like, whatever. Like that'll be a rounding error soon enough.
Indeed. Well, we don't have any questions pouring in, and I really just appreciate your time. I mean, I really appreciate the conversation. Every time, like you start talking, man, like I learned something new, and I'm just sitting here like, whoa, dude. I totally geek out here. I'm just like, what?
Yeah, it was very enlightening. So
thank you
very much.
I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun, and I hope we can chat again soon. The next couple of months, there's going to be a lot of things happening. Without giving away too much, summer is going to be really fun. I'll just leave it at that. I know that there's some big announcements coming in the summer, and then there's things that I know to be working that I have no ETA for, that have been alluded to end of year. So like just. Yeah, keep an eye on the space. Get involved as much as you're able or willing to. And if anyone has any questions about it or is interested, again, you can DM me on Twitter. That's kind of my primary communication space. So DM me there. I'll be happy to gift your first domain to you. It'd be a random string that I pick up in the market just to sandbox. And I'm happy to answer any other questions also.
So yeah, this is how you can catch him on Twitter at Namesake, right?
Namesake Mark.
Namesake Mark. Sorry, let me fix that.
No worries.
Yeah, I just want to mention. I just have to mention, this being a web developer, that the design for your websites is just awesome. Whoever has done the UI UX is great.
On Namesake domains.
On literally namesake domains, and on Handshake, and on Namebase.
Yeah, the
All of them
yeah,
are, I think, they're awesome.
I did the namesake domains, although I think my menu colors are broken right now. I noticed that the other day, but yeah, the other two were well, the Handshake Foundation was originally set up. I don't know who built that one, but yeah, Namebase also has a great, like, really great UI UX, especially when you get signed up, logged in. Yeah, they make it super easy.
Yeah. Guys, if you want to get a hold of Mark, ask him any questions, like you said, get some help, get that your name.
Name. Not your name. I'll give you a random name. I'm not gonna be able to tell your name.
Oh, okay, yeah. Random name, my bad.
No worries, no worries.
Mark up here. He's about to get flooded. No, at namesake Mark on Twitter. And I just want to take the time to say that Abuamerican actually, for the first time, was like ahead of the power curve on this one. I'm quite proud of myself.
Yeah.
Mark, it has been an absolute pleasure, and I politely insist that you do come back again, please, in the near future or whatever. I'd like to have you back, man.
Absolutely. Would love to join Blockchain Bros anytime.
Awesome. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. This has been Blockchain Bros, episode 16, and we will see you on the next show. We're out.